You know what's scary? Dinosaurs. The big boys, spooky creatures that lived a long time ago. But dinosaurs are nothing to the ancient terror that haunts all indie game devs. Scope creep. It's the idea of creating a goal that you can never reach because you keep making it bigger and bigger. Today I'm going to show you how my prehistoric survival game, Stone and Bone, went extinct because of scope creep. There'll be laughter, there'll be tears, and most importantly, there'll be dinosaurs. Let's get started. Our story begins in May of 2018. I was working on a couple projects and I had an idea for a survival game. Now, some of you out there may have heard of a little game called Roblox.
I'm gonna cut him off. Here we go.
And at the time, there was a really popular game mode called Booga Booga, which was a survival game where you could create tribes, fight in battles, build structures, and it was really cool because it was like a third-person version of Age of Empires. And I really liked the idea, and I thought, you know what? I should make my own survival game, and I'll make it even better. So I hopped on my computer, opened up Pixel-Edit, and then I got started. So here's the idea that I came up with. You'd have multiple teams or tribes, and the goal was to collect resources using tools and to build up a little base before the other tribes try to attack you. Now every tribe has a totem, and the totem is your life force basically, and if your totem gets destroyed, then you lose the game. Now this is relatively a simple idea and something I thought I could execute pretty quickly. At the time I was working on a bigger project, so this was just supposed to be a small little side project. If you watched last week's video, you know all the pain and suffering about that. But anyway, so I had a concept for a game and I had some artwork, so I figured this was the perfect time for me to start prototyping it in Construct. And using the magic of Construct's multiplayer system, I was actually able to make the prototype within a day. So everything was moving along smoothly, and then I had the worst idea I've ever had.
Procedural generation.
And just like that, I spent weeks of doing nothing but messing around with procedural generation and failing miserably. Now there's nothing wrong with experimenting with your game, and there's nothing wrong with trying to do procedural generation. Eventually I figured it out. The main issue I had was I already had a clear goal of a game, and I was working towards it and getting close to finishing it. But then I stopped myself because I thought, no, this game needs to be better, and added even more goals to it. And this is the definition of scope creep. When you have an idea, but it's never good enough, so you keep pushing it further and further. Sometimes that's necessary in a game, but in this case, it didn't add anything except for heartache. So feeling discouraged not being able to make progress on my game, I gave up and moved on to something else. A couple months later, I got the itch to work on the game again. It was just such a cool idea having primitive survival. I thought it'd be awesome if giant dinosaurs would attack you in the middle of the night. So I thought maybe I'll try this again, but change the game a little bit. I also changed game engines because I figured I'd want to use something that is a little bit more efficient, especially with procedural generation, which is something I wanted to try. So I ended up choosing GameMaker Studio 2 because it was comfortable for me. I actually grew up using GameMaker 7 almost 10 years ago when that was the thing. So I started creating a prototype, and this time I was like, let's make a crafting system. The dinosaurs should have 1,000 IQ. The worlds need to be infinite. I was just trying to do too much. And at first, it actually turned out really cool. The prototype I created, I'm really proud of. And I actually worked with my brother, Keeyp, to make this insane raptor AI. I think he spent almost a week just trying to make the pathfinding perfect, and it truly is. They're terrifying, they scare me still to this day. But the problem was, once again, I had made a game that was way too big from adding too many features before I actually finished the main game. So after working on the game for almost a month, I just couldn't work on it anymore. It was too overwhelming, there was too much to it, and the stuff that I had wasn't even polished enough to be its own game. So sadly, the second version of Stone and Bone died, and I was left just dreaming about dinosaurs in my sleep. Third time's the charm, right? Well, that's what I thought when I approached my third attempt at Stone and Bone. I went back to using Construct because at this point I had figured out how to use Photon, which made the multiplayer way better. And I will say my first attempt kind of struggled because Construct's native multiplayer isn't the best. And this time I went back to the original idea I had, but I thought, let's keep the newer artwork that I made for my last attempt. I think it was cool, and I think we could make something pretty quickly that's fun to play. So I worked like crazy to create a prototype that I could play with my friends. I knew if I could just push myself to actually get into a game with them, it would be a blast, and I would just find myself being content with the gameplay. I find that game devs are really hard on their own games. They're very critical and they can see all the flaws, but it's really important to play with other people because a lot of times they see something awesome from it and they get a great fresh experience. So I always recommend that you play your games with friends to get a good perspective. And this is what I did with Stone and Bone once I had a good prototype. I actually got it to work and managed to get 4 of my friends together to play an online match. Now it was really fun because you had this small map and you would have to collect resources, cut down wood, cut down rocks to make weapons and build a little fort. Meanwhile, the other team is doing the exact same thing, and it just added this sense of competition and fun. To add some extra challenge in the mix, I added some raptors and even a giant T-Rex that would come out at the middle of the night. And so it made it scary because it wasn't just a matter of fighting the other team, it was also trying to survive by collecting water, eating berries, not being killed by the predators at night. So after we played a couple rounds, the only critique was that maybe the map could be slightly bigger because it was very small at the time. And I thought, what if there was a big map and instead of being on teams, you would be little individuals that could create tribes? Now here is where everything started to fall apart because I had a goal and I already had a really fun game. But by making the map bigger and making it so you're not in teams anymore, it really just took away from the whole idea of Stone and Bone in the first place. Stone and Bone wasn't supposed to be this big survival game like Minecraft that went on forever. It was supposed to be really quick matches where you have to create, build something, and try to survive as long as possible. The goal was to see how many days you could go, how many days you could last in this survival situation. And I wish I could say that this story ended with me successfully releasing it and people playing it, but the sad fact is that I never actually finished Stone and Bone. I just kept adding too many ideas to the game, making it super unrealistic. And that's the hardest part working on a game, is really just keeping it simple. You have to think, if you keep your goals simple, you'll actually be able to finish the game, and then if you want to add those features later on, then you totally have the opportunity to. So you may be asking yourself, will I ever finish Stone and Bone? And the answer is yes, because I plan on actually returning to the game after I finish up some main projects, and I want to make the base game that I've always wanted. And I can't add these extra things, I can't add all this extra fluff, I just have to keep it simple. Being a game dev takes a lot of discipline, which is hard if you're also an artist, because artists just tend to be scatterbrained and like to experiment with projects. So if you're out there and you're working on a title and it's taken you forever, or if you've dropped a bunch of your titles because of scope creep, I just really encourage you to think about the core mechanics of your game. Are they necessary? Is it adding value, or is it taking away from you actually being able to finish it? Because you have to have a goal in order for you to finish a project, and if it keeps getting bigger, you're just gonna get more stressed and depressed, and you're gonna wonder why you ever started in the first place. So if you have any questions about Stone and Bone, or if you have any advice for me, please let me know in the comments below. Also, we just hit 200 subscribers the other day, and that is incredible. So I just appreciate and say thank you to each and every one of you. And if you want to see more updates or follow along, make sure to follow me on Twitter and our Discord channel down below. And I just hope you have a wonderful day.